Oh, it's so great. I know so many people are looking forward to being on this call today with you, Daniel.
Thank you. It's good to be here with you. And I love the live webinar. It's a throwback. It feels like COVID all over again, but only the good parts.
I like that. Oh, that's so great. Okay. Everybody's kind of rolling in. Thank you all so much. Oh, wow. I see Kina Pettijohn, who I
Oh, she's
saw on
great.
an earlier webinar with females in finance. I just want to say, like, give the biggest shout out. Yes, it's fun. We are literally on the air with Daniel
Nice.
Crosby. You guys check it out. I gotta get a picture of this
Nice.
for social later. So as you guys are all chiming in there, yeah, let's see if can I do that with more than one? Okay, we'll see. Thank you for the hearts, everybody. Oh, we're so blessed today, right, everybody? First of all, blessed to have all you here. You know that we greatly, greatly appreciate it. I see Jack, I see Jeanette, Jennifer, Keena, Linda, Scott, Sean, and Steve. God, you guys are already making our day. I know that other people are going to roll into. Let us know what the weather is and where you're coming in from. It's great to see like the dispersion.
Oh.
Ooh, the dispersion. That was the worst. Graduated undergrad with honors, but my statistics class, Daniel, no, that was just like that was the hardest challenge for me. Oh, and Anthony is also here too. Um, gosh, you guys, look at this. Come on, get out of town here. Daniel Crosby, his book just came out. Like I could feel the heat from the presses that put all of this together. You guys are in for a treat. Okay, so a little bit of housekeeping before we introduce Daniel. Just again, thank you so much. The book is Soul of Wealth 50 Reflections on Money and Meeting. I swear this is a fantastic book. You can pick it up, you can go to any page that you want. It's really a different book and different style from what Dr. Crosby Daniel has written in the past. So great. Oh, Lara, sorry it's a little bit of muggy where you are today. Daniel's going to brighten that up, I promise. I want to just give a big shout out to Kelly Waldrick here, our CEO and our co-founder. It was Kelly that brainchild this whole book club. And since then, I think that Daniel, I think you're number 16.
Oh, wow. That's
Yeah.
awesome.
I know, right? We've had like, and the recordings are all on Intentionally's website, you guys. Like, we're not even asking you to like enter names and passcodes. Like, we're like, hey, it's just there to watch. And pretty soon those will be uploaded to our YouTube channel. Today we'll pick a random winner for Dr. Daniel Crosby's book, The Soul of Wealth. And we'll also give you we'll put a cherry on top with an Amazon $50 gift certificate. Last but not least, if you know of an author within the financial services industry that's really key, book club at growintentionally.com. And you know that this is educational in nature. If you need specific advice, you've got to meet with your financial professional and or counselor. Daniel, how are you doing today?
I'm having an awesome day, and you're one of the kindest, best people in the industry, so hanging with you is always a joy.
Wow. Well, thank you. It's really great that you made the time. We couldn't be more thankful for it. We've got snow in Colorado. Florida's kind of cloudy today. Illinois is a little bit muggy, and it's warm and sunny in DC and Vegas. Thanks again for all of that, you guys. Also too, you could put your questions in the chat, or you could put your questions in the questions tab. So I'm going to read Daniel's bio. Before I do that, let's kind of kick it off with a poll. What do you think, Daniel?
I love it. Let's do it.
Okay, good. Okay, here we go. The first poll, right? We want to kind of get a sense. What is your current relationship with money? That's a loaded question, right? Oh boy, I'm loving the answers that we're seeing.
Hosts and panelists can't vote. I was going
Nope.
to put it's complicated.
Yep, I'm conflicted a little bit too, you know? It's what's really great here is to see the movements along the line. I would say, Daniel, the most here, I'm going to end the poll here. Um, I would vote with most people and say that my relationship with money is a little conflicted right now.
Yeah. Yeah.
which
That
is
was my
why.
answer. Yeah, that was my answer. That's funny.
Right. Which is
Hmm.
why. So, for all of you to see that, we've got some people are feeling in second position. We've got a tie for empowering and balanced. Great. Okay. I'm going to stop talking in a minute. I swear to God, I am. I just want to, I have to read Dr. Daniel Crosby's bio. Okay. He's put a lot of time and effort into this book as well as the three prior books. I want to make sure that you guys know the whole thing. So, Dr. Daniel Crosby, he's a psychologist, he's a behavioral finance expert who helps organizations understand the intersection of mind and markets, which we're going to be talking about today. His first book, Personal Benchmarking, Integrating Behavioral Finance and Investment Management, that was a New York Times bestseller. His number two book, The Laws of Wealth, that was also named a best investment book of 2017 by Axiom. That's been translated into not one, not two, but 14 languages. His third book, and again, I have these books. The Behavioral Investor was Axiom's best investment book of 2019. Now, we are here, The Soul of Wealth, published in October of 2024. When he's not decoding market psychology, he's a father of three, fanatical follower of the St. Louis Cardinals, an explorer of the American South, and an amateur hot sauce chef. Please welcome me in welcoming Dr. Daniel Crosby.
It's a lot of
Okay.
enthusiasm. Thank you.
Yeah, we're here. We're back at work. We are so happy to be in the office and not anywhere else right now. If you know, you know.
Yep.
Let's kind of start off with the first question. What inspired you? It's a beautiful, beautiful masterpiece, and I am so grateful for the inscription and the personalization of my book.
Of course. Really, there's kind of two answers to this. I mean, there's a micro answer and a macro answer. At the micro level, Tina, in the work that you and I do, and probably some other folks on this call, we are proximal to people with lots of money. We end up meeting people who've been really financially successful. And over my years of meeting people who fall into that category, I mean, one thing that I observed with some consistency was I didn't feel like they were a lot happier than the general population. I mean, even though some of these people have like summited the peak, I mean, they've done the most impressive things. I found that a lot of them had the same problems as you or I, and really hadn't always been able to use their wealth to uncomplicate or to better their lives. Pair that with at the macro level, this is the richest the world has ever been. I mean, I am a student of human history, and if you look at the vast timeline of human history, most of it was pretty bleak. I mean, most of it, men and women were kind of scratching and clawing for 35 good years, and a full tummy, and that was hard to get for most of human history. And even as recently as the founding of the U.S., 85% of the world lived in poverty. Today, that number's 9%. We have a really growing, thriving middle class throughout the world. And yet, this is the loneliest we've ever been.
Mm.
79% of Gen Z says they have no friends. A survey of men recently found that the modal number of friends that they had was zero. Depression, anxiety, self harm are all at record levels. So I wanted to try and make sense of and help solve for this truism that the world is richer than it's ever been, and simultaneously feels sort of spiritually impoverished or sort of existentially and psychologically impoverished. So I think it's a really big problem that we're not using our material wealth in ways that really bring about joy.
So I'm wondering because I know we've got a lot of financial advisors who are both listening right now live and who are accessing the replay. I'm wondering if some of the advisors on the call are also too seeing certain trends like that. Like it's so amazing, right? The juxtaposition of having so much abundance, but yet being so like psychological, isolating, or not feeling so great. Do you think that that's a lot to do with like just media in general and just like this little device over here?
Well, that little device doesn't help. I mean,
Yeah.
that little device doesn't help. In fact, they show that people who limited their screen time to 15 minutes of social media a day saw an immediate 10% uptick in happiness, which is the equivalent to taking Prozac. I mean, that's sort of the net effect of, taking an SSRI. So, the equivalent of just not looking at the highlight reel of other people's lives all day, it's pretty dramatic. So I think tech is partially to blame. I think, our work lives are sort of more hectic and more stressful than they've ever been. I think there's sort of the much talked about dissolution of the family and sort of traditional institutions, I think is tough. Like, I mean, people just they don't congregate, they don't gather the way that they used to. I think we're more remote. So yeah, I think there's a lot of factors, but tech is certainly chief among them.
Oh, and it's so interesting to get your perspective, Daniel, because you're a father of three. You and Katrina have three kids. Hey, if you're not already following Daniel on Instagram, I'm going to put the links also to you in the chat to make sure that you could get the book. I do want to say that the book is not only available on Amazon, but if you're like me and you're in the car lot and you're traveling, it's also too on Audible. So let's kind of talk about it because clearly this book is Soul of Wealth is different from the other books that you did. I'm looking also to you in your background, Daniel, and I'm almost thinking that I see the ink blot from the cover of the behavioral investor. Would that be true?
It's not, but it is. It's six ink blots. You can only see the bottom three, but it is.
Right.
They inspired the cover for the Behavioral Investor.
Yeah,
Got
it's
my
amazing, right?
got my little phrenology head there and my ink blots. I'm a true shrink.
Yeah, yeah. So tell us how this book is different and maybe how they fit in with the four. What a number with the four, right? Four previous books?
Yeah, so
Three.
three,
Yeah.
three, three solo
Yeah,
authored,
three
one
solo.
co-authored. Yeah, one
Right. Yeah.
co-authored. So yeah, I'll focus on my solo authored books. The laws of wealth and the behavioral investor were really about the how of investing. The laws of wealth is sort of all about, the most common behavioral pitfalls we fall into and how you can avoid them. The behavioral investor was sort of about the how of the blocking and tackling of constructing a portfolio and how an understanding of human error and human tendencies can be impacted by that. This book is about the why. I mean, you will learn nothing about how to pick a stock in this book. You're not gonna learn about, you're not gonna learn about your retirement plan options, but you will learn about the why of money. How you can, if you've read those first two books or you've, managed to put together a decent financial life and you kind of got that humming in the background, this book is about the why. How can you take that money and make it work for your why, your purpose, your meaning?
So, everyone on the call, and again, thank you. I'm so happy that you're all here. Nicola, Ricky, I see you. Tom, I see you also as well. Thanks again for joining. Here's what I really liked about this. And I think it's one of the unique features of the book. The fact that the contents, that each chapter is its own, like almost like its own world and its almost identity. So I want to read off just a couple of chapter names. They're very provocative and they really pull you in, Daniel. So you did an amazing job here. Giving is the path to abundance. Your money needs a why. Anything worth doing is risky. Um, Listen to women. Had to get that one in there. I'll be happy when dot 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 is a trap. Really, really interesting. What inspired you to do it in this type of format? And again, I think the premise of each chapter is like an essay onto itself.
Yeah, I'm glad you're enjoying it. It's been one of the best decisions I made with this book. So to give you a little inside baseball here, it did not start that way. I knew I wanted to write a book on money and meaning, and indeed I started. And so, all of my previous books had been pretty typical. They were about 250 pages. I mean, this one's about 250, 290 pages. They'd been about 250 pages, 12 chapters, 20 pages apiece around sort of a single theme.
Right.
And I started to write The Soul of Wealth that way, and it just candidly sucked. Like it was not good. I did about I did about 80 pages of it, and it just sucked. Like I went back and I was looking at it, and it was just kind of uninspired. And so I put it down, which was really hard for me to do because
Mm.
when you've written a third of a book effectively, you want it to see daylight, but it just wasn't good. And so I went back to the drawing board and I kind of shelved it for a moment. And at this time, I was reading Rick Rubin's book. So Rick Rubin is the producer for Johnny Cash, Jay-Z, the Beastie Boys, like all these, luminaries. And his book is called The Creative Act, which incidentally I would recommend to you after you read mine. And The Creative Act is like 70 something chapters, and a lot of the chapters are a page to 3 pages long. And for a guy with a big job who has a big family, by the time I get to my book at night, I'm a middle-aged dad. I mean, I'm tired, and I can't, I want to read every day, but it's not going to be a lot. Like it's probably going to be 4 or 5 pages. And I said, why don't I try and be inspired by Rick Rubin? And every chapter starts with a story, has a bit of research in the middle, and has a bit of application at the end. And that is the formula times 50. You're going to read a story that illustrates the point I'm trying to make. You're going to find the latest behavioral research on the topic, and you're going to learn how you can apply it to your life. And that was so inspired. Like once that clicked, the book wrote itself. And I had just been laboring before that, and so I'm super proud of the format, and I'm glad you liked it as well.
God, I'm super proud of the fact that you like went back to the like that you knew intuitively that it was time to just kind of rip things up. I like I can relate to that.
Mm.
I think you have to be so proud. I think, the energy that we use to create, and we're in marketing here at Intentionally. I always say that, if you're writing something, I'm going to be writing something for Kina's column for December. But what I can tell you is like that creative space, that mental space. I just saw Scott McKillop's post on LinkedIn too, with the big goat in the background. That was really great. Like you have to be in such a great energy and such a great mood to like, I think that's part of the battle. Correct me if I'm wrong, like when you're writing something to be like, yeah, like I truly believe in it. I'm like committed, like all of those kinds of emotions going through your system. Oh,
Well,
and what Nicola says really fast, because this is an amazing, thank you, Nicola. This is so cool. I haven't been this excited to read a book in a long time. Boom,
hey,
mic
Nicola.
drop right
There you
there.
go. Thank you. Love you, Nicola. Thank you. That's awesome. Yeah, so Tina, I think you're exactly right. And for me, you know, writing books is the thing I'm proudest of professionally. And I mean, there's a reason I waited 5 or 6 years between my last book and this book. I just wanted it to be perfect and I wanted it to be right. And this book, I wanted my previous two solo books have been geared toward advisors because that's mostly my audience and that's mostly who I serve. And no doubt that's the early sales of the book have been heavy among advisors. But this week, I've had 3 different advisors come to me and say that they're buying copies of the book for all their clients for holiday gifts, which is
Wow.
what I wanted. I wanted this book to get beyond the advisory community and help everyday mom and pop folks. Because advisors obviously do a ton of good, but at some point, this stuff, in one way or another, needs to trickle down to the end investors. And I think the concise messaging of the book is allowing it to do that.
That's just a great idea what you just said right there. And it marries perfectly with what I just put in the chat here. Everybody, you can see that links for Daniel's book on
Thank you.
Amazon. What a great idea to give it to your client as
Mhm.
well as and then to inscribe something. I mean, they will remember you. The number one reason why clients leave their advisors because there's no communication.
Yep.
I promise that this is a lasting reminder of how much you care about a client. So
Mhm.
really great stuff here. Okay, I want to launch this second poll, everybody, and remember, we're happy. Daniel's happy to take your questions. It doesn't matter if you have the book, don't have the book, read the book, or not. Take advantage of the fact that we're with one of the most prominent behavioral psychologists, behavioral scientists in the wealth management industry that you have access to. So if there's any like client whatever, now's a big time of year. We've got the holidays fast approaching. Christmas decorations are everywhere. But let's get this poll launched. Okay. Back. Number two. Here we go. Okay. As an advisor, and this kind of just works
Mhm.
directly with our conversation. As an advisor, what do you believe is the most significant roadblock your clients face in achieving true financial contentment? Yeah, wow. So materialism is part of that, a comparison to others, lack of financial literacy, lack of scarcity. Daniel, I would also say that emotions are super, super high right now, being that the election is like, I think our country's never been more divisive. We're not going to talk politics here, but we are going to talk a little bit about what do you notice? We put a link to your at Orion, a big shout out to Orion. What are you seeing? Like where's the pulse right now of like the consumer, and how does the advisor kind of navigate right
Yeah,
now?
excuse me, people are certainly very on edge. The election, I will be glad when it's over. My mom is here visiting us right now, and her stated reason for being here is because she wanted to be around positive, optimistic people in the run up to the election. She is like wanted to be around her grandkids effectively. Because she's just like so tired of sort of all the ill will. And it's crazy. A study came out earlier this year, and it's this Stress in America survey that the APA does every year. And the number one stressor in the lives of Americans was money. The number two stressor was work, and the number three stressor was the economy. Number four was like love and relationships. But effectively, Tina, that's you've got money, where you make your money and where you spend your money. So the work that we do in connecting money back to life and the work that advisors do in helping people achieve peace of mind about their money, I don't know that we always think of it as the good that it is, and we don't always think of it in terms of being a helping profession. But I mean, we are quite literally helping people resolve their first, second, and third greatest anxieties. So I'll be glad when we've resolved some of the uncertainty.
Me too. What a great thing that your mom did that. I really, really love that. Okay, we're gonna end the poll and we're gonna share the results here. So,
Mhm.
Daniel, I'd love a little bit of your BFI insights here. What are you seeing from this poll?
The poll's really prescient. One of the themes, there's certain themes that readers will see pop up sort of throughout. And one is this idea that comparison is the thief of joy, and that you need
Mm,
to run your own race and you need to benchmark to yourself. My that first book of mine was indeed called Personal Benchmark. And this is just such a powerful concept. I can't remember if we're going to talk about this comparison chapter or not in our conversation today, Tina, but like it's just such a huge predictor of how happy people are. There's one study that looked at people's levels of financial contentment, and it found that their reference class was a better predictor of how wealthy they felt than their actual wealth. And like, let me kind of break that down a little bit. It's like the people you compare yourselves to, it's a better predictor of how sort of financially at peace you are than actually whether or not you have a lot of money. And
that's crazy.
it's crazy, right? So
Totally.
this idea of being wealthy or poor, I mean, at the polls, yes, there is absolute poverty and there is absolute wealth. But I think among sort of that movable middle, it has a great deal more to do with sort of who you're comparing yourself to. And it's funny that the study that I cite in the book, it actually showed that middle class people were the happiest on average, the most content on average, because they were able to look above them, like on the socioeconomic ladder, and say, like, hey, yeah, there's a lot of people that do better than me. Well, that's something to work for. But they were able to also make downward comparisons, again, downward on the financial ladder, and say, hey, but I'm more blessed than a lot of people as well. I'm lucky. I'm lucky in a sense as well. People on the extremes, right? So people who are extremely wealthy tended to be really protective of their wealth, defensive of their wealth, and sort of look down disdainfully. And people who are very low in their levels of wealth tended to look up with a great deal of jealousy. So,
Mm.
who you compare yourself to, who you surround yourself with is so material. Um, it's such a huge predictor of how happy you're going to be with your money.
I love this question from Ricky. We're going to get to it in just a second, but I do want to highlight that here it is. The comparison is the thief
Mm,
of joy.
mhm,
Starting on page 23. Really great insights there. Wow, that is so like impactful. I would have never have thought,
mhm.
Daniel, that like, that people see it like that. Here's Ricky's question. Do you find that certain people don't spend in line with their values, but rather because society and ads and culture tells them it will make it happy? Do those spending types end up being less financially literate and successful?
Oh my goodness. What a great question. So it's sort of a let's sort of a multi-parter. Let me see if I can get all the parts of it. So do people, tell me the first part again, Tina?
Yeah, and I'll put that in the also too. I'll put that in the chat, and but I'll read it again as I'm stating it. Do you find that certain people don't spend in line with their values because society and ads and social media, I'm sure that I'm making that inference, I'm adding that in. It like shows them like, oh, you're gonna be so happy, right? You're gonna be so happy if you do X. Like, do those spending types end up being less financially literate and successful because I guess they're constantly like, you know, they're spending maybe above their means.
Yeah, it's a great question. I was looking for the exact page. I'll find it in a minute. But there's two chapters in in the book that address this fairly directly. One talks about the idea that your budget is sort of the ultimate BS indicator for how closely you are or are not living your values. Because I think if you look at most of us, right, you say, "Hey, Daniel, what's important to you?" And I would say, faith and family and, this and relationships. And they would say, okay, well, let's look at your budget and how you budget your time. And is that reflected in the way that you live your life? Because your budget is in a very real respect like a hard and fast practical measure of what you value. And so I have a whole chapter in here that says basically like call yourself on your own BS by
Mm.
looking at your spending and your allotment of time and looking for disconnects between what you profess to value and what you actually spend your money on, right? So I think that, yes, absolutely. There's another one in there that I'm really proud of that says your money, your vote. And this is, I know we're avoiding politics, but this is a powerful concept, I think, and I trace it back through the history of multiple civil rights movements. Right, I'm from Alabama. I live in Atlanta, so I live in Atlanta, and by way of brief digression, there's a great story about Atlanta. When Martin Luther King Jr. won the Nobel Prize, the city of Atlanta sent out this big like, hey, come have a celebratory party for Atlanta's native son winning the Nobel Prize, like big deal. And they send it out to all the big wigs and all the business leaders in Atlanta and say, please RSVP. Well, this is the segregated South. It's the 60s. Like nobody very few people RSVP, right? Very few. Oh, thank you, Carla. Very few people RSVP. And so the CEO of Coke writes a letter to the business leaders of Atlanta and says, "Hey, uh, the Coca-Cola, it's my understanding that the city of Atlanta needs the Coca-Cola Corporation, but I can promise you that the Coca-Cola Corporation doesn't need the city of Atlanta. So if you don't show up to this party, we're gone." And basically, suddenly the party's very nicely attended. And we see this, Rosa Parks action and the accompanying Montgomery bus boycott. That was a financial lever that was used to root out oppression. If you look at apartheid in South Africa, you got people boycotting the diamond trade in South Africa. You got people boycotting sporting events and other things in South Africa. That's a financial lever. So we're all really locked in on this vote in 6 days, which we should be. Like, go out and vote, absolutely. But just know that you are voting for the world you want every day
Mhm.
when you
Mhm.
spend money. I last thing here,
Wow.
I took my kids, I take my kids to the farmers market pretty much every Saturday in the spring and fall when it's nice. And, we were buying some spaghetti sauce from a local vendor recently, and my son was like, "That seems really expensive. Like, that seems really expensive, and it seems like a lot more expensive than it would be at the store." And I said, "It absolutely is." I'm like, it's 3 times more expensive than if we went and bought some ragu at the store. But I want to create a world where this lady can have a farm and come
Mhm.
sell her wares. Like, that $15 tomato sauce is a vote for that kind of world. And that's what we're doing here. We're not trying to get the best deal. We are trying to mold the world that we want. And so, yes, go vote in November, but know that you vote every day for the values you want and the world you want when you spend your money.
Wow. That is so powerful. What you just said, I did put the quote in the chat or paraphrase that, you're voting for the world you want every day when you're spending money. And yes, I know that you thank Carla. That was amazing that you put that. Linda Whittick is here also too. Love the fact that, budget reflecting values. I have a question of my own on, we're going to talk a little bit, we're going to switch to a little bit about gratitude and abundance. On page 11 is one of my favorite chapters, and I kind of felt like, receiving the book from you, Daniel, and getting the inscription personalized, that was definitely like, it felt very, very meaningful to me. So, what can you expand a little bit on, aside from the touchy feely part of like being gifted something and feeling amazing from it? What is the academic research telling us about the connection between, gratitude, giving, and a sense of abundance?
Yeah, so gratitude, I talk in the book about gratitude, and again, we see that people who keep a gratitude journal, and this is not some big dramatic thing. It's like one of these bullet journals where you write one thing that you're thankful for. This could be prayer, right? This could be prayer or meditation, just like an opportunity each day to say thank you for the abundance, whether it's in a journal or to your God or wherever it is. This act of expressing thanks is again shows about the same efficacy as psychotropic medication in improving people's mood. So,
Mm.
every day, life is hard, and nobody knows that better than Tina recently, but life is hard, but life is also beautiful, right? Life is also beautiful in spots. And it's easy to forget that. The way that we're wired sort of for negativity in a lot of ways. And we're wired to avoid risk and to sort of tune in to the negative. And so to combat that naturally with gratitude is such a simple but powerful thing. There's certain sort of interventions or ideas in the book that seem almost like science fiction. Like, it doesn't seem like that should work, that you write down one thing you're grateful for every day and that it should lift your mood that substantially, but it does.
And I got to tell you, I just put a link, everybody, to that was a fascinating explanation, Daniel. I have used the 5 minute journal too. If you're looking for more like a very tactical plan, again, what Daniel's saying is just the act of writing and just, wherever you are is fine. But if you're looking for to really like commit yourself to like a new habit, atomic habits, right? The 5 minute journal on Amazon has been something that I have used in the past right now, and basically like you're expressing gratitude a couple times per day, like in the beginning and then like approaching your day and then at the end. So it's great, it's thin, it's easy, you can travel with it, you could put it in your nightstand, it could be right there. And yeah, since having like a major health, oh, did I not put it in, everybody? Okay, thank you. Maybe hosts and panelists. Oh, sorry. Thank you, Carla. That was so nice of you. Why don't
Mhm.
we put it to everyone? Because apparently, here we go. Little emo brain there. Okay, but we're good. We're good. Okay, so the 5 minute journal's there, and then I'm gonna put the link to all of Daniel's stuff. But I found that to be just so great. And I swear to God, Daniel, every day when I wake up, I'm just like, hey, thank God that I'm alive. If you guys haven't been through, which I hope that you'll never find yourself, just a simple act of just getting up, and I'm here at Intentionally headquarters right outside of Philly. I swear I had Pink Floyd, I had AC/DC, I had Bon Jovi. It's a number 38. I could not wait to drive to work today. And that was like just that whole act of gratitude. It's probably why you're here, like so much enthusiasm in my voice. Okay. Here we go. I've got another question going back to these like provocative names. Okay. Um, and health. Okay. Page 143. What doesn't kill you might make you richer.
Richer. Yeah.
I love that. I can't wait to dig into that chapter, Daniel. Again, you took me like I'm expecting what makes you richer. Who knew?
Yeah, that's the ABC model. I think that's probably a model that has real applicability in your life right now, right? So
Totally.
if we look at this ABC model, that I tried at various places in the book to just introduce little tips, tricks, models that I think are simple but transformative. One of them is the ABC model. Typically, we think that life is as good or as bad as the things that happen to us, right? Like if good things happen to me, I'll be happy. If bad things happen to me, I'll be sad. But I think people like Tina are a good example of how you can get a really rough hand for a season and continue to be a light to other people. And so, what is the trick of people like Tina? Like, what do people like Tina do differently that lets them take some of this power back? And the ABC model is really the formula. So the A in the ABC model is activating event. So this is just like what life has given you, right? The B is the belief about that activating event, right? And the C is the consequence. And a lot of times we try and skip from A to C. And Tina could say, look, I have this horrible health, I have this horrible health scare, like therefore I'm going to be dour and pissy and I'm going to rain on everyone's parade and I'm going to sit in my sweatpants and I'm going to cancel my talk with Daniel and just on, right? I'm going to listen to sad songs on the way to the office. But when you change your belief, you change your world because an event is not good or bad, irrespective of our beliefs and the lens through which we view it. So just as surely as you can, Tina, sorry to keep using you as an
No,
example.
it's really good, and most of again, a lung cancer diagnosis. That's what we're talking about. I think you all know, but I've been very
Yeah,
public about it.
yeah. So, the activating event is a lung cancer diagnosis, but the belief is I'm going to use this to empower people. Life is short. I'm going to crank Bon Jovi.
Yep.
Like, I mean, you can, when you change your belief, you change the consequence. So I think a lot of us just operate in this world that's too deterministic. We feel like we're tossed to and fro. and you look at the research on happiness, and it is admittedly a little bit of a mixed bag. So if you look at the research on happiness, you got this pie of happiness. 50% of the happiness pie is genetics. Okay. So some of us got better parents than others for, for to be sort of naturally happy. And that is what it is. There's not a thing you can do about it. But when you look at the remaining 50%, 40% of it is your choices, and only 10% of it is what happens to you. And I think
Wow.
and I think most people think that's flipped. I think most people would flip that. So yes, it is true, right? Like I'm 5'11", right? So I'm 5'11", with better nutrition and exercise at like certain points in my life. Maybe I could have been 6 feet tall, and maybe with worse nutrition, maybe I'm 5'9" or 5'10", right? But basically, I was going to be sort of in this ballpark. But there, within that ballpark, there's a lot you can do to influence it. So the 50% is what it is. I hope you got good parents. Maybe you didn't, but that sort of is what it is. But beyond that, let's take that 40%, which is 80% of what we can, do anything about, and like let's do something with it, and know that our beliefs and our mindset is powerful to change situations and change consequences.
That's those statistics are shocking.
Mm,
Like the only the 10%. That I would have never expected that. Again, leave it to you, Daniel, a behavioral finance researcher, to, have those facts and that retention of data readily available. Lara had to go, but she did say that it's been awesome, and she's really thanks us so much for the great discussion. I've got one more poll here, and then I kind of want to plug you for I want to hear from you, going back to the experience of the book, kind of what was the most challenging.
yeah.
So because this is a big project.
Yeah.
You've
Mhm.
got you're busy, you're a husband, you're a father of three, you're behavioral finance, you're at Orion, like, you've got a pretty busy life. So I wanted to hear from you, like, what was there a chapter that was like more challenging than the others?
So certainly the hardest one wisdom, and I will feel a little stupid saying this to you, but the hardest one wisdom in the book is from the chapter titled "Health is Wealth." It
Mm.
was actually a big part of how the book came to be too. Uh, in early 2021, I started having some really painful symptoms. I started having really bad migraines, kind of almost like an electrical buzzing in my head, sensitivity to light, I like partial blindness, just but like really, really painful stuff. And I couldn't figure out what it is. And so I go to WebMD, I look it up, and that's a nightmare. Like, you get back,
Oh,
you,
for sure. WebMD, and I don't know if you've gone to the sister chat GPT also too to plug in stuff now.
Yeah. So it's like you go there and you see some scary stuff.
For
And so
sure.
the least scary option was a dental problem. And so I said, look, I'm going to start there. I'm going to rule out the most probable least scary thing. First, I go to my dentist, they check me over, they're like, you're fine. And I've never had a cavity. I mean, they're like, you're fine. And so the pain persists, the pain gets worse. I go to 8 or 9 other specialists. I'm spending thousands of dollars. Pain, pain, pain won't go away. One night it just becomes so blinding, so excruciating. I'm sitting and my wife is driving me to the emergency room, and I'm sitting in the front seat of her car and I'm just crying. And I'm like, when is this going to end? And I'm like, I said to her, I'm like, I would give you every dollar we have to make this go away and to figure it out, because I feel like I have a brain tumor. I feel like some
Right.
weird thing is happening to me and I can't figure it out. 2 weeks later, I bite into a sandwich and my tooth cracks in half. It was my tooth the whole time. My whole
Wow.
time, the whole time it was just my tooth. It was nothing. I mean, it was nothing big, right? but they missed it, and then I never checked back into it because I thought it had been ruled out. And it ended up being no big deal, obviously, but in those moments where I didn't know what was going on and I thought it was far more serious, Tina, I love money. I talk about money, I write about it, and in
Mm,
those moments, and you know exactly what I'm talking about better than anyone.
exactly.
You
Totally.
don't care about money.
Yep.
You don't care one bit about money. And those moments are so illuminating, which is why I think people need to follow your journey online, because when you have a health scare, when you have a medical crisis, what matters in life is brought into very sharp relief. The rest of us are kind of flying blind. The rest of us are sort of distracted by small stuff. For someone who's worried about their health, life gets real narrow, and what matters and what doesn't matter is crystal clear.
You couldn't have said it any better and any more true. When you have a health crisis, like your priorities become crystal clear.
Mhm.
Your decisions, your decision making, crystal clear. Your ability to focus, crystal clear. How you want to give, how you want to show up, how you want to just like how you want to utilize every single bit of time that you have left is crystal clear. I also, Daniel, it would be if I want everybody on the call to know it's interesting, right? Like given this health crisis, you know what? I still look at my money every single day.
Hmm.
I look at my retirement accounts, I look at my bank accounts, I make sure like there's nothing crazy going on. Check my beneficiary designations on stuff like that. We were having a discussion in females in finance around, stuff like that and insurance. But I mean, nothing is more illuminating that amount of clarity and I can compare and contrast that. I'm 58 years old. I can compare and contrast that before a health crisis and where I was a little bit my kind of like all over the place, right?
Mm-hmm.
But now it's like that is the one it's really really a gift. It's really a gift. Plus your the way that you spend your money. Like I know that I don't wait for things anymore. I don't delay gratification, although I
Mm-hmm.
know you have a chapter in the book about it. And it's one of the secrets to like, I think accumulating wealth is delaying gratification. I no longer delay gratification the same way that I used to, you
Yeah.
know?
Well, I think people are so wise to like follow you and your story. The fancy shrink term for this is an existential boundary experience. It's like when we all know cognitively that we're gonna die. Like, if someone said, "Hey, Daniel, are you gonna die one day?" I'd be like, "Yeah, of course." But it doesn't feel very real to me in this moment, you know. But one day I was having a bad day at work, and my wife came down crying and tells me that my sister-in-law had just died. She was, in her early 30s, and she had just died. And everything I was worried about seemed so stupid. Like, I mean, just like instantly, everything I had been upset about 5 seconds earlier was so stupid. So, whether it's our own health scare, the health scare of a friend, observing it secondhand, reading about it in the book, we are so wise to try and get in the mindset. You see I was showing Tina earlier my memento mori bracelet that my daughter made for me. We are so wise to try and tap into this wisdom, the wisdom of people like Tina who see the world the way it should be seen.
I want to really quick you guys because I've got to put that episode. So Daniel and I before this broadcast we were talking about our time at Fuse in Utah, and then where I interviewed him for In the Sweet podcast, and I'm going to put that link in there right now too, where we talk about the concept of memento mori, and neither one of us knew like what I was about to basically walk
Right.
into. I think that
Jeez.
that's why also too like the book has been really helpful at, again, I can zero in and hone in on any. any adjective, any noun, any concept that I want to look at and kind of read it over again. It's really one of the parts that I love about the book. If there's one message, right? There's so many different themes. You and I have touched upon it. We've looked at delayed gratification, we've looked at gratitude. What do you think is the one message? If you were to distill it down, Daniel, what would you hope it to be for everyone here on the call? And again, we appreciate the value of your time so much, you guys, and everybody who's watching on the replay. Thank you so much.
So, as a as a preview of coming attractions, this book was my first step into what I think is going to be a pretty like big career pull toward talking about meaning and purpose. I'm a huge fan of Viktor Frankl's work. He's featured prominently in the book. The Power of Purpose features prominently in the book. But when Frankl was in Auschwitz and the other concentration camps where he was housed, the phrase that he found that kind of got him through was a quote by Friedrich Nietzsche, which is, "He or she who has a why to live can bear with almost any how." So effectively, if you have a purpose, no
Mhm.
matter what life throws at you, you can get through it. And that, if there's one, I mean, there's 50 messages, but if there's one message, that's the one to take away. That every one of these chapters is about trying to elevate our relationship with money to give us a why. Because if we have that why with our money, the how will work itself out. Like we can see ourselves through any how if we get that why sorted.
I was getting goosebumps as you were saying that. That couldn't be more true.
Yeah.
I also want to give a shout out to Daniel's pod. I mean, if you're maybe one of the 1% that has never heard of standard deviations on this call, I just wanted to make sure that you had a link for that as well. Let's get to our last poll, everybody. And again, appreciate the courtesy of your time here. This is so fascinating. I swear, like it is amazing how this um how like 1 hour just like vroom, like goes by. But and I know a lot of you haven't received the book just came out fresh off the presses, Soul of Wealth. But maybe relating to what you heard Daniel speak about on this call and some of the topics that he was talking about, what action are you most inspired to take after reading The Soul of Wealth? um I'm loving to see these. I don't know if you could see them right now, but it's like it's going, it's going.
Fighting. Yeah.
Yep, 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 yep. So I'm gonna end the poll. I'm gonna end the poll right now. And share the results. Daniel, what do you make of the results here?
Hey, I love it. We got a
Mm,
tie. There is
yeah.
actually a lot about goals. We didn't get to it today, but there's some fun stuff on goals in there as well. Yeah, but man, if they could do those middle two, I'd be very happy.
Yeah, where are you going to be like in the next, like I know like conference season and stuff has died down. I think Orion Ascent announced their 2025 dates. Pardon me that I don't have it off the top of my head. But
It's
I'm
it's it's
wondering where
early
else
this
like
year.
like your book tour. Like clearly you're
Yeah.
on stages and speaking everywhere and you always pack the house. Let's
So
just
I've
call it what it
I've
is.
been on I've been on the road for about 10 weeks in a row, so don't put that evil on me. I was just at the Fearless Investing Summit in Nashville where I saw Laura and others. But next for me is I have a CFA event in Detroit, then I'll be at Schwab. I'll be at the Think Advisor Luminaries. Um,
In Vegas.
in Vegas. I'll be at the my not much for me to do in Vegas, but I'll be I'll be for for a boring dad like myself. Not a lot going on in Vegas, but yeah, I'll be in Vegas for Think Advisor, and then yeah, the Orion Ascent conference. You can get all of me you ever wanted. I think I speak 5 or 6 times at that conference. So the Orion Ascent conference in February is can't miss for sure.
Okay, and the best way to get into contact with you before my last question.
Yeah, go buy the book is thing number one. I'm on LinkedIn, Dr. Daniel Crosby or Daniel Crosby, PhD, and on Twitter at Daniel Crosby.
Okay, awesome. So you're a parent, I'm a parent. I'm also a grandparent now. Oh,
Yo.
it's so amazing. I've got one granddaughter that is 16 months and another granddaughter that's 3 months, and they are the light of my life. So I'm going to be seeing them on Sunday. I couldn't be more excited. My dream, Daniel, when I became a parent was that my kids both had retirement accounts in their 20s.
Mm.
Unlike I did not have that luxury, did not have that. That wasn't instilled. My mother did the best job. My parents did the best job that she can that they could. But obviously, the world changed a lot with the internet and social media and all of that and just financial literacy. But that was always my dream. And I was happy that yes, my kids both had that dream. They were able to achieve that. So and now we've got 403, we've got 529 plans set up for grandkids. So really, really excited, like how he changed the generations. But you're a husband, you're a devoted parent to three. I love seeing your social posts, love following you, especially on Instagram. How do you, from the lens of a author, behavioral finance expert, research, how do you and Katrina go about like talking and instilling some of these concepts with your own children? Because I know a lot of us are parents, grandparents, and even aunts and uncles to kids.
So first of all, shout out to my son, who was the first person. My 10-year-old son was the first person in the world outside of my publisher to read The Soul of Wealth. So he read that thing cover to cover, and I consider it a huge compliment, or maybe it's a diss, that a 10-year-old could get the book. Like that the 10-year-old, maybe it speaks to how puerile my ideas are. But no, he's a great guy. But here's the number one thing that I think we do well. There's probably things we don't do well. The number one thing I think we do well is look for organic teaching moments, right? When you hear about something on the
Mm,
radio, it gives you a chance to talk about, oh, like what's happening with this company and why. When you're at the store and you see a banana, like it gives you a chance to talk about, the supply chain. When you buy them new shoes, it gives them a chance to talk about Nike stock and would you want to own it and why or why not, and what's a PE ratio and what's momentum and these sorts of
right.
things. What is partial ownership of a company? What does that entitle you to? So the good and the bad thing about money is that it touches every part of our lives. Like there's nothing that money doesn't touch. And so it gives you a lot of organic teaching opportunities. I think kids, at least mine, are highly resistant to sort of like open up and here comes some medicine. But but if you can kind of bake the medicine into your daily meanderings, I think it goes down with a spoonful of sugar to torture that analogy. But yeah, if you can just look for days in your everyday life to introduce a financial concept and to deepen the way they think about the world, I think that's one of the most powerful ways.
I mean, and you led off with that, right? With I'm imagining you and your son at the farmer's market talking and having
Mm,
that jar of sauce. Like I think like I was like, oh wow.
yeah,
As you were like explaining to me that example that you led off with.
yeah, it's great.
Um, well, look, we appreciate the courtesy of your time. We know that you've been busy. I really appreciate everybody who's on the live broadcast and who is also too listening. Please get the book. Lakina Pettijohn says that it's
Thank
amazing.
you, Tina.
And
Yeah.
we know she's been on nearly every single book club. And really, Daniel, truly it was. What a soulful book and what a soulful conversation. I couldn't be more grateful for just today and to be here live with you and on the air.
Well, Tina, everyone, whatever you believe or don't believe, I hope we can all send Tina a lot of good vibes and a lot of love. We are all praying for you and thinking of you. And there's no one more soulful I could have had this conversation with. So I'm thankful for you, your openness, your heart, and your willingness to go there with us. So it's a gift to all of us.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Okay, everybody be well, and we'll see you next month. Everybody take care. Thank you so much.